If you've been watching my content for some time now, you'll know that I'm not a gamer. I've said this again and again. I don't play video games, I don't own any console, I don't PC game, I don't Tamagotchi game. I play board games, I play card games, I don't play video games. So I suppose, in that respect, I'm not a gamer. While I do try to refrain as much as possible from talking about video games here on this channel because like I said, I'm not a gamer, and I don't understand anything about video games. I don't know about Call of Duty, I don't know about Halo, I don't know about Borderlands or Watch Dogs or any of that. Today's topic kind of concerns the intersection of video games as a medium with the medium of film, with which I am very familiar. So, with the release of the new Halo TV show that everyone seems to be dunking on, let's ask the question: why are film adaptations of video games always so terrible? It was very predictable when the Halo TV show came out and all the gamers were in an uproar. Oh my gosh, Master Chief takes off his helmet? Oh my gosh, Master Chief isn't how he is in the games. It's been going on for decades now with filmmakers like Uwe Boll and Paul Anderson, most notably having directed the Resident Evil series. There are like 6 or 7 of them, all of them with Milla Jovovich. Before we get into the reasons as to why video game movies are so terrible, I will say I do respect Milla Jovovich's dedication, as it were, to her husband's craft, you know. She's a good actress, she's in some really good shit, so to think that she's in like all the Resident Evil movies, that takes some like serious dedication. So nothing against Milla Jovovich, I think, you know, she's a great actress. Easily she's proven herself as like one of the top action heroines of all time. So with that out of the way, let's ask the question, you know, why are video game movies so terrible? I've seen a lot of reviews and analyses of the subject, from, like I said, the Halo TV show, to Resident Evil, to Monster Hunter, you know, all these videos where they go in depth on like the terrible movies that are being made about these video games. More often than not, it seems that the reason these reviewers point to, and again, all these reviewers are gamers, so I'm coming at it here from a filmmaking perspective. The reason these gamers usually point to is that Uwe Boll or Paul W.S. Anderson, not to be confused with Wes Anderson, much like Paul W.S. Anderson makes the same type of movie again and again.
You're fired.
The most common argument is that Uwe Boll or Paul W.S. Anderson are simply terrible filmmakers, you know, hacks without any like real talent, and they just suck. From what I've seen of Uwe Boll's portfolio, however, and Paul W.S. Anderson and the rest of these video game directors, from what I've seen of the techniques they use, they're very unorthodox and experimental and out there. And I feel that if they weren't making a video game adaptation, an Uwe Boll project could potentially be like really fun and weird. Now, I'm not going to argue that they're great directors or anything, but I think to put the blame entirely on the directors here is kind of the wrong strategy. So the argument I'm going to make is that the reason video game adaptations suck is because video games suck. Yeah, big surprise, I know. You might be saying, Nicholas, that's too harsh. You can't say that no video game tells a compelling or interesting story. That is what I'm saying. Like I said, I'm not a gamer. I've never played a single video game in my life. And, you know, I've never talked about a video game individually, so I just speak about them as a medium here. There's no way a video game could tell as interesting a story as a normal movie or like a novel or a TV show. There's just no way. This is because fundamentally video games are still built on the strategy that defined Super Mario Brothers and Pac-Man. They're just interactive little fun hijinks where you go around and smash shit up and do goofy shit. It's not like a story. It's not like a compelling narrative. Like, sure, To the average gamer, maybe Resident Evil is like an incredible psychological horror masterpiece, but to me, someone who actually engages with higher forms of art, Night of the Living Dead smashes Resident Evil's ass any day. Like George A. Romero is the shit, and Resident Evil or Silent Hill or any of these like horror games are just not as good. I'm not going to pretend like they are. Part of this obviously is the interactive element. Video games are designed to give the illusion of choice to a player, even though it's all pre-programmed. They say, look, you're the main character, make up your own story. I guess for people who don't have enough imagination to actually create their own story with original characters and the like, now you can go into World of Warcraft and pretend like you're writing an entire novel, even though you're just messing around with an invention somebody else created. Whoopee. That's why there's not like a Blue Velvet video game, for instance, because with a director like David Lynch at the helm, each decision narratively makes sense. Each choice is meant to guide the characters into new events. Like, if there was a Blue Velvet video game with a level of interactivity and you could immediately confront Frank Booth as the well-dressed man, then it wouldn't be as interesting as Blue Velvet the movie, where it takes a little bit to build up to that. But when you're given free choice, and you have foresight and insider knowledge, and you are the character, then you can just ruin the story.
You can do it. Do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do the Pac-Man cereal. You can do the Pac-Man with Pac-Man marshmallows. You can open wide, gobble up the ghost and hide it inside. Marshmallow orange, red, pink, and blue. Trouble up good, or they might kill you. You can do it. You can do the Pac-Man.
Movies work narratively because they're the singular vision of one person just telling a story from beginning to end. The same goes for a novel. The problem with video games is that they're about 80% filler, and there are too many possibilities, too many possible endings, too many possible ways the story could go. So inevitably, when you try and concentrate that into one storyline for a movie, you're going to come out with complete nonsense, and you're going to disappoint the fans. That's another problem with video game movies, and why so often they suck, is because they're designed for a very, small audience. I'm not going to go see the Resident Evil movie. I've never played Resident Evil in my life, so I wouldn't be interested in a Resident Evil movie, as the demographic who's, not a gamer. And all these gamers who go to see the Resident Evil movie are going to be pissed because, oh no, it's not exactly like the game, even though it's impossible to make a movie like a video game because they're two separate mediums with two different points. Am I saying that because video games are stupid and can't tell a cohesive narrative, they shouldn't be played? No, they're just fun. Like, I don't go to Pac-Man for, the most, the best narrative. Doom isn't Blade Runner. They're both sci-fi. That's about all they have in common. Doom is stupid. It's about shooting up demons with your big gun, That's fine, if that's what floats your boat, but don't pretend like it is Blade Runner. It's not. It's just not. Like, stop lying to yourself. I don't know what it is with gamers and their insistence that their video games have to be special and have to be this crazy transcendent experience. The problem with video games is that unlike novels or movies, which are direct expressions of human emotion, because you just pick up a camera or write something down and it comes directly out of your brain, video games are always put through an engine and software, and you have to render those polygons. When you filter human expression through a computer, the end result is going to be kind of shit. It's just unavoidable. A lot of people point at the Super Mario Brothers movie with John Lasagna as Luigi as one of the first examples of a terrible video game movie. But I would argue video games have never really evolved beyond Mario just jumping up with the hammer and hitting the Goombas and saving Princess Panini, or whatever her name is, Princess Panera. I don't know, I'm not a gamer. I would argue video games really haven't evolved past that. They might seem like they have, but at the end of the day, all you're doing is restocking items and going here and going there, and it's all just interactive and stupid. It's like a board game. And you never see this with board game players. You never see people go, oh, Monopoly is so deep, man. It taught me about the dangers of capitalism. Oh, Sorry is so deep, man. That Pop-O-Matic. Or now I'm thinking of Trouble. That Pop-O-Matic, it's a statement on how life is cruel. That Pop-O-Matic got me. Oh. You never see that with board game fans. So I don't know what it is with video gamers. To pretend like their little Pac-Man jumping around and eating the dots is like some brilliant statement, you know. It's just not. I know this video is going to upset some gamers, and, you know, I get it. With the Halo TV show, a lot of people have been like, oh, the people behind the show, they didn't play Halo. Well, probably not, because video games, unlike movies, are like way too long. They're like 10 hours. At this point, you've got teams working on games like Fallout. It's like 100 fucking people to create a game that you can't even finish in like a decade. Yeah, I don't blame the people making this dumb adaptation of a stupid video game for not playing the whole video game. They don't have to. If the people behind the video game wanted people to be able to play their video game in a reasonable amount of time, they could have made it 2 hours. You know, the average game of Pac-Man takes like, what, 3 minutes? Much more efficient, I say, and less dishonest too. Less facetious, less pretentious. Regardless, I don't think the story Halo presents is that interesting or different or cool compared to what's been done in science fiction before. Like, you mean to tell me Halo is better than, like, Starship Troopers? Yeah, it's just not. And sure, you could make the argument that Robert Heinlein's Starship Troopers is a kind of totalitarian idea, and obviously the movie by Paul Verhoeven is more satiric. But even then, there are some ideas expressed there. There's a point. There are a lot of nuanced and complex messages that both the film and book present. Halo is about a guy with a helmet going around and shooting shit up. And, you know, it's not Larry Niven. It's Halo. Like, come on. It's not Ringworld. It's Halo. Recently, in the past decade or so, this has been a trend, of course. There are the indie games, which try to present an artistic, you know, deep, really complex, narratively intricate, emotionally impactful story. One example I could point to right off the top of my head, of course, is Kentucky Route Zero. Again, though, it's not as good as a movie. Like, Kentucky Route Zero is really pretentious, but you're not going to convince me that it's as good as, like, a Robert Altman movie. Like, screw off. You're not Coal Miner's Daughter, you're Kentucky Route Zero, and all your characters are polygon people who don't even have faces. Like, who am I supposed to connect with? You don't have a face, you're just like a blob.
Do it. Do it. You can do it. You can do the Pac-Man cereal. You can do the Pac-Man with Pac-Man marshmallows. You can open.
It's honestly kind of funny to see, like, video gamers try and up the stakes, you know, and try and make each new video game like more and more like cool and oh my gosh, you didn't see this coming. Another good example in this trend of pretension is the Edith Finch game. Always sad because there are so many cool stories you could tell narratively in a movie, but I just don't think people who play video games generally have like very cool ideas, because video games are idea regurgitators. They just keep repeating the same ideas over and over again. There's nothing new in video games. You can't do anything new with it. It's just, oh, this is an action shooter, this is a platformer, this is an RPG, this is an MMO, this is an MMORPG. I don't know the difference between any of these. I think platformers is like the Mario type game. I don't know any video games besides Mario. I've never played Super Mario Brothers. I'm not a gamer again, so I'm just speaking about this from a filmmaking perspective. But there's no way Kentucky Route Zero is like as good as a Robert Altman movie, which is obviously what it's trying to be. Before you hop in the comments and go, oh no, you can't accuse video games of being derivative of movies. I absolutely can. Movies are an older medium, an older format, and video games, by necessity, will be somewhat derivative of that format. The only exception to this rule, I would say, again, are the retro video games that don't pretend to be anything other than mindless fun, like Q*bert or Pac-Man. You know, video games that are just games for the sake of playing a game where you jet your little pixel engine around and...
But I spend a lot of money in there. I spend about $5 or so.
Every day?
Every day.
You know, it's not pretentious like Resident Evil where it's like, ooh, this is the idea. Yeah, you're telling me PT is as psychologically effective as Psycho? No, there's no way. Add to this the fact that the video game industry is just generally corrupt. For instance, you know, the Polish artist Zdzisław Belsinski, whose paintings are totally awesome. Recently, he had his assets stolen, like they took the Bone Church, you know, that fantastic cathedral made out of bones, and they just made that into a video game asset and plopped it in a video game, and they were like inspired by the work of Zdzisław Belsinski, because technically it's in the public domain, you know, because he's dead. And it was just a cheap cash grab. And to think that, like, again, a painting is more complex, more narratively interesting than a shitty video game. It's really sad because, like, looking at the Bone Church, you don't need to explore the Bone Church. You don't need to go inside. You kind of know everything there is to know about the Bone Church just by looking at it. It's both terrifying and marvelous in the same painting. Then you go to the shitty video game version that they ripped off, and it's like, wow, now I can see the sides of the Bone Church. Now I can see the back of it that I wasn't able to see before. Wow, you sure are offering me a new and immersive experience.
Nazralath, The Fallen World is a story-driven, third-person, dark fantasy action-adventure game with RPG elements, focusing on a compelling narrative and exploration through a rich, strong sense of atmosphere and world. Wow, I wonder where you got that rich, strong sense of atmosphere and world from. I really doubt you came up with it.
You might say, oh, that's not indicative of the video game industry as a whole. I really think it is. I don't think gamers are able to come up with original or new or interesting ideas. Every video game movie, like Resident Evil or whatever, is going to be based on a pre-existing property. And when you do that, you're not coming up with original shit. You're not coming up with new stuff to put into a movie. As a movie watcher, I understand why video game movies fail. It's because they're based on stories that are tired and filler and stupid and boring and lame. And more often than not, the directors who choose to direct them aren't like the best directors. You'd never see Stanley Kubrick direct a video game movie. If he was alive to live through this incessant deluge of trash, that is. It's a good thing he died before this all started. Well, I guess he was alive to see the Super Mario Brothers movie. Man, that must have been sad.
They're brothers. They're plumbers.
I'm sure you all know the feeling.
So like I said, there are a few reasons why video game adaptations usually fail, but I would not put the blame entirely on, you know, the ball or whatever. I put the blame on, like, the source material. If the source material is shit, you're gonna get a movie that's shit. That's just, like, the undeniable truth. Like, yeah, you know, if you're going to make a movie out of Slaughterhouse 6, Legend of the Vampire Queen, you're not going to get, like, the most nuanced or crazy, you know, fantastic story out of that. You're not gonna get an Oscar winner there. You're gonna get schlock. You're gonna get cheap thrills. You're just gonna get a CGI dumpster factory. And I think it's time gamers just kind of accept that. I think this pretension rise in gamers is a little much. I think it's time that, you know, consumers of real art put the gamers back in their place and, like, call out bullshit when you see it. Like if you see a video game, for instance, that rips off Zdzisław, you can be like, no, this isn't okay, stop it.
You can do it. You can do it.
And that's perfectly within reason. Like, Zdzisław did not want his paintings turned into a video game. Or if he did, he would have said so. But he didn't, so stop doing that. The guy's dead, you know? He's the Bone Church now. His bones are probably part of the church. Man, the paintings are so good. Like, just to think that you could be a gamer and you could look at a painting like that and go, I can do that better. I can make that in Unity or whatever, you know. Like, stop. Just stop. You're ruining art. You're ruining human expression with your Pac-Man cringe. And it's time to just, like, you know, sit down and enjoy the schlock if that's what you want. If you play Resident Evil, you know, if you play GTA, that's fine. You're not going to convince me a movie adaptation of GTA would be as good as, like, The Godfather. You're not going to convince me that a movie adaptation of Red Dead Redemption 2 is going to be as good as Tombstone. You're just not. I don't know who they're trying to fool or trick or whatever, but the Halo TV show is an absolutely predictable thing that I saw coming a million miles away. It's not that it's not an accurate adaptation of the game, it's that the game is dumb. So a TV show based on it is going to be dumb. Read a book, watch a movie. That's my suggestion if you want actual, like, complex narrative, you know? But other than that, like, don't expect anything amazing. Anyway, that's my analysis of the subject. It's really interesting. Again, no disrespect to Mia Jovovich. Hopefully she's in some good movies soon, that her husband isn't behind. You know, great actress. It's amazing how long she's stuck to the garbage. But best of luck to you, Mia. Anyway, that'll do it for this interesting little video. Gamers are cringe to the max.